Welcome back to the program. It's The Verdict, and we're keeping an eye on all activities concerning the elections before, after, and now we're looking ahead to the counting. So, yes, we did ask you to send us messages on hashtag The Verdict. Let me look at some of them. This one is coming in from Kempta Housing Estates, and it says, voted about past 12 p.m., massive turnout, unprecedented, commendable. I'm enjoying the process. Here again, we have hashtag The Verdict. Nigeria decides, vote wisely, no need for violence. Another one says, this is from Ashrabi TV, it says, just before my civic responsibility, I feel so proud, I feel so great. I'm happy to be part of this generation. Do you have any, Auntie?
Yeah, but they're mostly pictures. The guest we had here yesterday, Juliet Benite, voted and she tweeted her picture showing her.
Yeah, she did tell us that she was going to do that.
It says, fulfilled my civic duty. That then some other one about the other ones are all videos which can't read out here. Then Olorogun Ernest, I hope I got that well, says Nigeria is currently looking like an action movie on Netflix. Everywhere is quiet, and it's like we're back in 1999 to 2003. I really don't understand what that means.
Well, maybe he's trying to say, referring to the no movement and silence.
And all of that.
Yeah.
Well, in case you think we forgot, we didn't forget. Our guests in the Abuja studio, Ezenwa Wagu, Ifoma Zogo, and Chidi Odinkalu, welcome back to The Verdict. And I'm sure you've been following through the trend of the conversation all along. And if I may just come to you, Professor Odinkalu, at the stage that we are in now, the election is taking place. In some places, as we have seen, it's been concluded. And sorting has also been concluded, and they're now counting. There are a few areas that we can authenticate where the voting has been extended because it started late, the materials arrived late. But one wants to know now that between now and whenever it is that voting is concluded, what should INEC be seeking to do to mitigate whatever there is that is left to do during this period?
I don't know. I'm sure INEC will have better answers to this, but it seems to me that, I mean, at your end there, Egmonfola has addressed some of those issues long term. Right now, I would think that INEC should be there with Bond to address result filtration, because you know, you're in this situation where voting has not commenced in some places reportedly, and counting has finished in some places, and numbers may start filtering out. I do think in some form that may have some impact, or could, let me not say may, but could actually affect people in different parts of the country, and you could begin to see people would begin to get mood intelligence and decide how to adjust their decision-making. It seems to me that BON and INEC may wish to look at that and address how that goes. There's also been something else that's been discussed here in the context of chronic logistic challenges. I don't think this is an INEC problem. I think this is a system-wide problem, and we've got to address it. I'll give you an example. National Union of Road Transport Workers has been mentioned here. INEC does need a body of drivers to take materials across the country. I think it's somewhere in the region of about 80,000 drivers that were needed to help with this, and National Union of Road Transport Workers was required to help with providing these numbers. When these people came, the Federal Road Safety Corps discovered that well over 85% of them are unlicensed. They don't have current licenses. Many of their vehicles, well over 60%, were uninsurable. Okay? And in the context of now, INEC is not a manager of these things. And solutions had to be found within the Nigerian context. And I can understand an ideological commitment to seeing how the electoral value chain, or the money spent on the electoral value chain, is spent on Nigerian providers. And within that context, therefore, we do need an audit that goes well beyond INEC. If we don't fix our public governance system, it's difficult to fix our elections.
At this point...
yeah, let's go to our correspondent, Loretta Chiogo. Now, you know that counting and sorting is going on all across the nation. So she's in Alimosho local government area. Loretta.
Let the party agents speak for you. That's why you are party agents. All of you cannot be party agents.
It's palpable tension here in St. Andrew's Primary School in Yobo Ipaja area of Alimosho local government. And this particular area where I am is a collation center. Sorting of ballot papers has already begun, and party agents are raising objections over what they say are voided votes. They've refused that these ballot papers be pushed as valid votes. A number of those who came rather late to the voting center and were rejected by the card readers, I mean their PVCs were rejected by the card readers, had no opportunity to try again as voting ended exactly 2 p.m. here. We're still monitoring events. It's back to you in the studio.
Loretta there from Alimosho local government. Tempers are fled. The party agents unhappy with the way the counting is going, and the collation as well.
And one of the issues that has highlighted is the question of voided votes.
Yeah.
We spent all week talking about this question of where you put your finger and how it crosses or doesn't cross.
Did you see the
over.
policeman in that shot as well? He was just, you know...
Yeah, well, I mean, again, being...
That's what the sole
I didn't see any of his colleagues, and I'm sure nobody...
I mean, in that kind of a situation, like, Mr. Woy, when you say you have his phone number and you have his...
but it's a question of authority. It's a question of where the police as an entity, the state has literally stripped it of that authority that we used to see in the 60s by creating multiple agencies, by putting them on duty. That look, if you make a policeman an escort to a Chinese contractor in full regalia of the state, you are just diminishing the office. So they've lost that authority, and we need to restore that authority. Otherwise, we shouldn't need to call out the military.
Mr. Wangu, can I just come to you to react to what we saw there going on in that polling unit, and also to react to some reports that we're getting that in some of the polling units, the ballot papers were not stamped, except the people, made noise about it, and then eventually it was done. For some, it wasn't done. Did you notice that as well, and is that acceptable? Will it affect the result?
Well, I think that we had conversations around process issues that we're dealing with in terms of whether the INEC officials understand their responsibilities and how well they are able to carry that responsibility. What we have seen is the examples that you're citing will suggest that perhaps that particular presiding officer or poll official did not quite understand what they are supposed to do. They are supposed to stamp the ballot papers and then ensure that it's signed. So if they didn't do that, that's a dereliction of duty. But I want to weigh in on what Chidi and our partner in Lagos had been talking about. I have a sense that we're oversimplifying the conversation around the logistic challenges that we face. I don't think that National Union of Road Transport Workers in any way government. They are, excuse me, they are private sector. So private sector providing services. So, and Chidi made that big issue around the whole governance architecture that we're dealing with, whether it's private sector, whether it is government. Our attitude to service provisioning is still very fundamentally flawed. Why do I say that? This National Union of Road Transport Workers will enter into agreement with INEC to provide vehicles. When they enter these agreements, the agreement will be part payment. If you deliver, you are paid a certain amount of money. When you deliver, you are paid the rest. On election day, without conversations with anybody, they wake up and say they want the full money. And if you don't give them the full money, they are not taking a step. You have core members waiting to be ferried to the different places where they should start this process, and then the security people will be doing parade will come out by 7 a.m. and start parade. Instead of knowing that they have a national assignment to do at that time, they start parade, start counting. By the time they finish all of that, it is already 9 a.m. These are issues. So when we talk about generally looking at how we engage service delivery in our country, we will need to appreciate why perhaps we are not able to start things when we should start. So the bigger question will be, if you don't, even in terms of the things, the contracting that you see, most of the things that INEC had on time were things that were done outside this country by foreign companies. Most of the things that were given to our indigenous companies, many of them faltered and did not provide the services when they should provide them. These are issues, these are conversations that we should have, broadly speaking, in terms of engaging the challenges that we face. In terms of whether all this will be widespread, we need to also take into cognizance that we're dealing with close to 120,000 polling units and close to 500 thereabout polling units. 50,000 or thereabout, I don't have the exact figure now, voting points. So the point is that 57,000 voting points. So the real issue here will have to be, if we are dealing with these isolated cases, we have to have a broader view of how things have played out in the different other polling units across the country to be able to take a summation in terms of whether we can really make a call on whether logistics has failed, whether the ad hoc staff were unable to render their services. We are getting pockets of interventions that it went well in this place, it didn't go well. So we have to have a broader view of how things have gone generally across the different voting points and across the different polling units to be able to make a correct call.
Okay, we'll come back to you, Mr. Wangu, but speaking about how things are going in other places, let's check in with our correspondent, Emmanuel Ereyi, in Port Harcourt, Rivers State. Remember, we did report earlier on about some of the issues they had in Abonima, Finima. So let's hear from Emmanuel. Emmanuel?
It has been a long day for the elections in Rivers State, as voting across many centers get to home stretch. While the exercise can be largely described as peaceful in Port Harcourt, the state capital, there was trouble, especially in riverine communities of the states of Abonima, Okrika, Andoni, and Boni, where there were reports of alleged security intimidation and violence, with deaths also on the paper. Many expect that the authorities, talking about INEC and the security agencies, to come forth with their full report on what has transpired today, and we'll be putting our fingers on that. But there are questions already being raised on the very credibility of the process, the fairness of the process, and we expect that also to be included in the report as we stand by for what the results will be and look forward to the next elections. Back to you.
Emmanuel. Now, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, but let me just take you back to Lagos, where we are here, the Ikota area of Isolo. Now, it's amateur photography. Remember, we did put a call out to citizens, journalists, to send us what they can see. So this is one of the things that we're seeing from that area.
They are the cause of all this mess. They came there and messed up the whole place. Jesus! Messed up everybody, beat up everybody, kill somebody. John, you must arise. Unless this nation does not belong to you. If this Nigeria belongs to you, this is time for you to prove yourself, God. This is time for you to prove yourself. We have suffered enough. We have suffered enough. We have suffered enough. Problem right now. Let's get everything. I know the exact number of the card.
This is happening at about 12:55 when the election started around 9 a.m.
Yes,
all the efforts, the voters have been standing under the sun.
Hello, sir. This is everything they burnt. Look at, they came here, they burnt all our ballot papers, they burnt our ballot boxes. They first came this morning, they said, they came with talks loyal to the All Progressive Congress. They came here, they said that if we do not vote for APC, no Lagos, no vote for us. Look at, they destroyed all the canopies, they chased down all the INEC officials. Look at people, disenfranchised voters, all shouting and calling for their rights. All soldiers calling for their rights. Look at, see them, they're all calling for their rights. They're all calling for their rights. Nigerians are calling for their rights.
All right, again, just to say that those that's amateur photography sent in to us, not independently verified by Channels Television, but these are visuals that were sent in to us by some of the citizens journalists out there. And guys,
indeed, we'll keep
putting that aside, what we saw in Rivers.
We'll keep an eye on this. After all the voting and so on, I mean, there'll be all kinds of audits for these purposes to find out what exactly it is that is going on. If indeed these incidents happen the way those who sent them to us have sent them to us, and then go on from there. But again, Emmanuel Ray, of course, did talk. The earlier inset from Emmanuel Ray in Port Harcourt also did talk about, you know, some of the skirmishes, some of the problems that had occurred in the course of voting in Rivers State, and a report being put together so that action can come from this subsequently. Now, staying in Abuja, let me come to Ifeoma Zogu. And again, it goes back to the big L, which is what we've chosen to call it now. That's this issue of logistics. Because in this area, if indeed it happened the way it happened in the Okota area that we just showed, where was the security for this polling unit? I mean, how could people just arrive and just set the place on fire, set all the materials on fire and so on? It still goes back to the issue of logistics. And before we went on break, Ezenwawagu was talking about the fact that service providers, government infrastructure, these are all issues that needed to be discussed even after the elections. What's your position?
Okay. Judging and looking at that video, I'm also very surprised how things could have gotten to that level without any security agents. In the polling units where I was, I don't know if it's because it's a division, a police division is just nearby. By 7-something, I counted 13 policemen. By a few minutes to 8, there were like 20-something policemen. And I was wondering to myself, I hope other units or other polling units have enough policemen. So I think there was some kind of imbalance in the distribution of policemen. And we had so many observers. In fact, we started complaining that it seems that we have more observers, policemen, NSI, you know, so many people in one particular place. So I'm just wondering if Okota had the fair share of security personnel they should have had. And then, please, if I may weigh in on what Mr. Nwago said. The signing of the ballot papers, while I was there and talking to a few of my friends in other areas, I noticed that it was just one person signing for like hundreds of people. And I was like maybe the 20th person, and he was already tired. And he was writing 27 as a date. And I said to him, sir, that's not 23rd. And he looked up at me as per, why are you looking at this? And I said, that's not 23rd. And then he corrected it, and he complained immediately that he's already getting tired, that this is 2 people's jobs. So we had more security men, but we didn't have enough people to probably put, you know, sign the ballot papers. And then I also noticed that people were a bit confused in what to do.
When you say people,
there was the issue of,
those
should I stamp here? Okay, the electoral officials, because there was a particular man that said to us, the red box is for ladies. And I looked at his tag, and I'm serious, and I looked at his tag, and I said, how can the red box be for ladies? The red box, you know, and I corrected him, and he was looking at me as per, who are you to talk to me and everything. And then we started the issue of, you know, I think it was yesterday, one of the speakers you had here told us the green box is for the House of Rep, the red is for the Senate, and the black is for the presidential one. But it wasn't.
Yes.
As we got in there, the black was for the Senate, the red for the president and everything. So all those things were, and I was just wondering, some people will have heard this, and then the gap of of what should I call the masses not even having the opportunity of channels, which is a very fair and independent channel that just speaks, you know, without weighing on certain areas. I was just wondering if other channels were reporting like that, if it was only social media that these things are available to, because a lot of people were not aware of how to thumbprint, where to thumbprint, what place. I also corrected somebody that put the green paper in the black box. Good enough, he hadn't entered in very well, so I just talked to him and pulled it out, and then it was placed well. I know that could have been corrected later on, but there were a lot of gaps in this logistics, and the logistics I'm talking about is not just the security, it's also the education, because that's part of what makes the whole thing.
We'll take a break at this point. We'll come back. The discussion is becoming more interesting now as we're looking back at what has happened and what to do going forward. Please stay with us.
Yeah.